A sign of the times, perhaps, with Canada's new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, breaking with tradition and travelling to Europe, not the United States, on his first official foreign trip. Carney was greeted warmly by the French President Emmanuel Macron, and then in London, Carney met with his British counterpart, Sir Keir Starmer.
$6.5 billion US dollars. That's the amount Canada just spent to protect itself from US threats. Prime Minister Mark Carney has just signed a significant military agreement with Australia, marking the beginning of a strong and independent Canada. Prime Minister Mark Carney, after completing his European tour with important agreements in France and the UK, has returned to Canada and made bold political decisions. But it's not just about meeting with traditional allies. Carney has also announced a new strategy to protect Canada's sovereignty independently without relying on support from the US.
We can stand up for ourselves. It's Canada strong. We can stand up for ourselves. We've called out those comments. They're disrespectful. They're not helpful. And they need to...
Carney announced the allocation of $6 billion in a partnership with Australia for an over-the-horizon radar system that can provide early warning coverage from the Canada-US border all the way up to the Arctic.
One of the most notable moves is the $6.5 billion US dollar deal Canada signed with Australia. The long-range radar system provided by Australia will help Canada protect the Arctic region without needing assistance from the US. This is a critical strategic agreement, not just defensive, but also a clear sign of national independence. This event is not just a military transaction. It's a strong political statement, affirming that Canada can stand on its own in key issues without depending on major powers. For years, the Arctic has been a strategic area that the US has valued highly. But now, Canada is strengthening its position there without the need for help from the Trump administration. Mark Carney made it clear in his statements that Canada will continue to expand its international partnerships, not just with Australia, but also with other countries like France and EU members. This message is not only a warning to the US, but also demonstrates Canada's ambition to maintain an independent, strong, and influential global position. As relations with the US grow increasingly tense, seeking out other strategic partners has become essential to protect national interests. With the increasing tensions between the US and Canada, the Canadian community has taken clear actions to express national pride. A prime example is the decision by the city of Mississauga, where American flags at public locations were replaced with larger Canadian flags, as a way to protest Trump's policies and assert the people's autonomy. It's sad that one man and his group of followers are disrupting markets, making life difficult for business owners on both sides of the border, and undermining such a mutually beneficial relationship, said Carolyn Parrish, the mayor of Mississauga. This is not just a symbolic gesture, but a strong reaction expressing dissatisfaction with the threats from the US, while reaffirming that the Canadian people are proud of their country and ready to defend their right to self-determination. The trade war between Canada and the US is not just a political issue, but it also directly impacts the economy. US companies are facing a sharp decline in revenue in Canada. According to the latest data, the US tourism industry has seen an 85% drop in trips from Canada, while US products are no longer favored by Canadian consumers. Canadian businesses are experiencing significant growth as people turn to support domestic products. Even fast food chains like A&W in Canada are witnessing strong growth, surpassing US brands like McDonald's. This shows that the Canadian people are increasingly proud and determined to support their national economy, while also expressing resistance to Trump's policies. Stay tuned to not miss any surprising developments in this dramatic confrontation between Canada and the US. Over the past few days, a powerful speech by Michelle Obama has captured the nation's attention, and almost immediately Donald Trump fired back with a strong reaction on social media. But what exactly triggered this exchange between a former First Lady and a former president? In her latest speech, Michelle Obama made some striking remarks about leadership and the standards that should come with it.
We know folks are going to do everything they can to distort her truth. My husband and I sadly know a little something about this. For years, Donald Trump did everything in his power to try to make people fear us. See, his limited, narrow view of the world made him feel threatened by the existence of two hardworking, highly educated, successful people who happen to be black.
She emphasized that being president isn't just about making loud statements or stirring up controversy. It's about leading with responsibility. Michelle also spoke about her family's past experiences, recalling how Trump had questioned Barack Obama's legitimacy and fueled public doubt about his background and qualifications. Though she didn't mention any specific controversies, her words reignited a heated discussion about the way political figures attack and discredit each other. It didn't take long. Right after Michelle Obama's speech hit the headlines, Donald Trump took to social media to hit back hard.
With your support on November 5th, you know what's nasty to me? Michelle Obama. She was ooh. I always tried to be so nice and respectful. Oh, she opened up a little bit of a box. She opened up a little bit of something. Oh, she was nasty. Ooh. Shouldn't be that way. That was a big mistake that she...
Trump accused Michelle of personal attacks, saying her comments were unfair and inaccurate. According to him, the media and high-profile figures often push narratives without considering the full political picture. From another perspective, Trump's supporters saw his reaction as justified. He has repeatedly claimed that he's been treated unfairly by the press. But critics argue that Trump is once again leaning into his signature playbook, turning every criticism into a public battle to rally his base. If there's one thing that stands out in this showdown, it's the stark difference in how these two figures operate. Michelle Obama is known for her calm, composed approach, focusing on education, unity, and moral responsibility. Donald Trump, he's direct, unfiltered, and quick to fire back at any challenge.
Last 8 years, in his first term alone, Barack had to rescue our economy from the worst crisis since the Great Depression. He had to make the call to take out Osama bin Laden, respond to devastating natural disasters like Hurricane Sandy, and so much more. So when it comes to the qualifications we should demand in a president, to start with, we need someone who'll take the job seriously.
Two very different ways of addressing the public, and two very different ideas about leadership. Beyond the headlines, Michelle Obama's speech and Trump's response have split public opinion. Some say Michelle masterfully reinforced her values while exposing Trump's leadership flaws. Others believe Trump had every right to defend himself, arguing that he's been under fire from the media for years. No matter where you stand, one thing is clear. Every word spoken by Michelle Obama or Donald Trump sets off a wave of reactions across the country. One thing we know: this won't be the last exchange between these two heavyweights. Michelle Obama's speeches always make headlines. Trump's reactions always keep the conversation going. But what do you think? Was Trump's response justified? Was Michelle Obama talking about Trump directly, or was it just a general reflection on leadership? Stay tuned, because this clash is far from over. One wrong move and Trump loses point, not just with the market, but also with the public. And now, what's the price to pay when the people turn their backs on him? For the first time in his second term, Trump's approval rating has fallen into negative territory. A few months ago, he was still a strong candidate for another victory, but with continuous failed decisions, from controversial tariff policies to pandemic management. The decline was unavoidable. According to the latest data from Gallup, Trump's approval rating is dropping sharply, even falling below 40%, something that never happened in his first term. This means he's facing a strong backlash, especially from swing voters and Republicans who are no longer in favor of his policies. Why has someone who was once so strongly supported lost their trust? The answer lies in the mistakes Trump has made, especially in handling economic and social crises. The tariff policies aimed at America's largest trade partners, like Canada and Mexico, didn't just hurt the economy, but also created confusion in businesses. We're talking about a stock market that lost $1.2 trillion in just 1 week. Proving these decisions have diminished investor confidence in Trump's leadership ability, and the slow response and contradictory statements in handling the pandemic have made many lose faith in his leadership. Statistics from international health organizations show the U.S. still leads the world in infections and deaths, severely impacting Trump's image. But is this decline a sign of long-term collapse? Or can Trump do something to turn the tide? History has shown that recovering after losing public support is never easy, especially when the approval rating falls into negative territory. Let's look at some recent examples. Biden, despite receiving strong support from certain voter groups, couldn't avoid a drop in approval when the economy faced difficulties. Polls show, even as Biden tried to focus on foreign policy and recovering the economy post-pandemic, he still faced harsh criticism from both Democrats and Republicans. Meanwhile, Trump faced a similar situation in 2020. Despite some major foreign policy victories, his failure in handling the pandemic caused his support to decline throughout the election period. Given the current situation, many Republicans are starting to worry about whether they should continue to defend Trump. Some are considering separating themselves to avoid being linked to his strategic failures, while others choose to remain silent to avoid upsetting key voter groups in the upcoming election. One of the big questions being raised is whether the Republican Party should continue to back Trump. As his approval rating drops dramatically, traditional Republicans are starting to worry that sticking with Trump could damage their image with swing voters who are crucial in presidential elections. Some prominent leaders, like Ron DeSantis and other influential figures, may look to build an independent image. Avoiding too strong a connection with Trump, they see that stepping around Trump could help them create a cleaner brand, attracting support from voters less attached to Trump, and opening opportunities for distinct strategies. Additionally, some Republicans may choose to remain silent, neither publicly supporting nor opposing Trump. Instead, they'll wait until closer to the election to decide their next move. This is a strategy to avoid a direct clash with Trump, but also shows a lack of decisiveness in handling his policies and decisions, especially as his support continues to decline. The current situation may make it hard for him to regain trust from voters in the near future. This congressional hearing has turned into a total disaster for Trump. With everything he tried to hide now exposed, Jasmine Crockett, a rising star in the Democratic Party, made Trump and the MAGA crowd face the undeniable truth, using sharp questions to reveal the dark sides of their policies.
Felony convictions that has still been able to roam around in your cities.
Jasmine Crockett is not a newcomer. The representative from Texas quickly established herself as a true warrior in American politics. In just a few short years, she has become a new symbol in the Democratic Party, known for her fierce confrontations with the GOP. She stands out not only for her strong personality, but also for her fearless approach to confronting sensitive issues. In the most recent congressional hearing, Crockett did not hesitate to take on the hypocrisy of GOP leaders, especially when it came to immigration policies and sanctuary cities. The hearing, which seemed like just another political event, quickly turned into an intense battle of wits. It all started when Republican lawmakers tried to blame sanctuary city policies for rising crime rates and instability in urban areas.
On something, because I know that many of you prepared for today's hearing by making sure that you got a little bit of information about immigrants and crime in your cities. Let me ask each of the mayors, just yes or no, have any of you been made aware of any immigrant that has had 34 felony convictions that has still been able to roam around in your cities? Anyone?
No, ma'am.
34 felony convictions
No,
from the immigrants. Anybody?
I'm not aware.
Oh, okay. I'm just curious because we are so concerned about crime, and I know that my Republican colleagues would never want anybody with 34 felony convictions roaming around because that could be a danger to the community, but I will move on.
What's even more striking is that it wasn't just GOP lawmakers who got called out. Trump himself couldn't escape criticism. Crockett skillfully pointed out that if Republicans truly cared about crime, they should start by looking at those in power, none other than Trump, who's been convicted of multiple criminal charges. This not only exposed the hypocrisy within GOP policies, but also delivered a major blow to MAGA supporters who've been trying to protect a convicted criminal, saying this hearing was a disaster for Trump and his supporters. The sharp questions from Jasmine Crockett left MAGA unable to defend Trump's failed policies and violations. Every attempt to redirect public opinion failed, as it became clear that the real criminals were not immigrants, but the very politicians from their own ranks, especially Trump, who should be the ones facing the criticism for their crimes. Crockett made it clear the difference between those who truly break the law and those unfairly treated just because they're immigrants. The real criminals aren't in sanctuary cities, like they're in the powerful political offices, causing scandals and corruption that no one wants to face. Crockett's question: so, how are you going to address the real issue? Left MAGA without an answer. Jasmine Crockett is rising as a shining star in the Democratic Party. If she continues to maintain this momentum, it's hard to imagine that one day she won't become a significant leader in the future. A Speaker of the House, or even a formidable challenger to Ted Cruz in the Texas Senate race might not be too far off. But what will this change mean for the future of American politics? Don't take your eyes off the screen, because the next revelations will surprise you. Donald Trump's speech was abruptly interrupted when Representative Al Green shouted and waved a cane in protest in the middle of the chamber. Chaos erupted, forcing the Capitol Police to intervene. But what's more significant is how the Democratic Party reacted: divided, disorganized, and under heavy criticism.
We're becoming the metaphorical car alarms that nobody pays attention to, and it may not be the winning message.
Is this a sign that the Democratic Party is losing direction ahead of the upcoming election? Trump's speech was progressing as usual until it was suddenly disrupted. Representative A.L. Green stood up in the middle of the chamber, waved a cane, and shouted at Trump, causing an uproar. House Speaker Mike Johnson immediately called for Capitol Police intervention. Al Green was escorted out, but moments later, a group of progressive Democrats continued their protest by chanting, holding signs, and singing inside the session. The situation escalated quickly, forcing a temporary adjournment. We had hoped that incidents like this wouldn't happen, but in the end, they have only damaged their own image. A Democratic lawmaker anonymously told Axios. The media immediately focused on the disorder, completely overshadowing any political message the Democratic Party had hoped to convey. The damage extended beyond public perception. The Democratic Party itself faced a serious internal split. Moderate Democrats accused progressives of pushing the party into a defensive position. A Democratic strategist anonymously told Fox News, "They don't understand that this kind of behavior doesn't help at all. It just makes us look out of control." Meanwhile, progressives defended Al Green's protest, arguing that it was a justified act against Trump. However, this internal clash fueled further tensions within the party. Some moderates argued that opposing Trump should be strategic, rather than through emotional outbursts that damage the party's credibility. No leadership, no strategy, no message. The Democratic Party is drifting. Doug Schoen, veteran Democratic strategist. This disarray not only deeply divided the party, but also weakened voter confidence. Without a swift course correction, this could lead to significant losses in the upcoming election. The event quickly became a target of mockery in conservative media, but the backlash didn't just come from the right. Criticism emerged within the Democratic Party itself. Senator John Fetterman expressed his disappointment.
Speech, a sad cavalcade of cell phones and unhinged petulance. It only makes Trump look more presidential and restrained.
Some independent voters also distanced themselves. Joseph Knowles, a longtime Democratic voter, stated on national television,
"Disappointed in the Democrats and how they handle things. And you know what? I feel like I made a damn good choice. I'm not voting for them anymore."
This incident not only damaged the Democratic Party's credibility, but also alienated a crucial segment of undecided voters, those who often determine election outcomes. Instead of delivering a strong message against Trump, the Democrats turned themselves into a laughingstock. This was a major political miscalculation, especially with the election approaching. And the biggest winner from this chaos? Donald Trump. Trump didn't have to do anything. He simply let the Democratic Party self-destruct. Following the incident, Trump seized the opportunity to attack his opponents, declaring,
"This is from Trump. He said the Democrats should lose the midterms based on their behavior, Republicans can take what happened last night and win any race in the country.
Former Democratic strategist Doug Schoen issued a warning. If the Democratic Party doesn't change course now, they will continue to sink and hand the stage entirely to Trump. Can they recalibrate their strategy before it's too late? Or will they continue down this path, giving Republicans the advantage in the upcoming election?